an artist, the idea of finding wealthy art buyers to purchase your work is really enticing. I mean, think about it. If you can make a single work and sell it for $5,000 or $10,000 or maybe even more, I mean, wouldn't you want to do that? I mean, we all would, right? But the reality is that most artists are not going to be able to sell their work for $5,000 or higher ever. Now, there are some situations where artists do make a lot of money on their work, but I'm going to get to those in a minute in the video. But most of us don't encounter these situations or aren't able to put in the work, or maybe our work isn't even good enough. And this transitions us into the first thing you have to do if you want to find wealthy art buyers, that you need to make work that is very high quality. And typically it needs to add to the cultural conversation in the contemporary art world in some way. And so this means that it needs to have content, something deeper, not just be a simple portrait like I'm painting right now, but something that actually has some meaning in the cultural milieu. This makes the work worth more money because you've got to understand that investors, and that's what these people are, the elite, high-paying buyers, they are investing in the work and they want it to appreciate or grow in value over time. And so in order to do that, you have to play the game. This means that your work needs to stand out above everybody else's in every possible way. You have to beat out all of the other artists for these very few elite buyers to want to purchase your work. Not only do you have to beat them out in the buyer's eyes, your work needs to be worth their investment over the other artists in the field that they can encounter and see, but also your work has to get past the gatekeepers. And this is the most important part, because no matter what you do, I've seen some videos on YouTube that tell you that if you just make a website that makes your art look like a luxury brand, and then all of a sudden the buyers will come, I don't know. But branding yourself as a luxury is not going to be the thing that sells your work to these elite high-end buyers. What's gonna sell your work are those gatekeepers that I mentioned. They are going to either say your work is worth those buyers purchasing, or they're not, and they say it's worth purchasing by allowing the work into the gallery shows and group shows that are very high end. And again, this goes back to the quality of work in some respects, because you have to have amazing work to get past the level of these gatekeepers that will then give your artwork the nod toward the higher end buyers. Because ultimately the high end buyers, they want to buy work that's being sold among other high end work. And this is the easiest way, like if you're just trying to break into the high-end art market, it's the easiest way and the most direct route to get your work in front of the correct buyers is to get into really high-end group shows. But you have to apply to these, and oftentimes they don't just only take into consideration your quality of work, but they also take into consideration your past exhibition record. And this is where it gets very tedious and can be extremely expensive. In order to build up your CV, which is basically your resume as an artist, you have to start applying to group shows. And you gotta start low. You can't usually get into those really prestigious, high dollar selling shows at first. So you have to apply at all these different smaller shows. And what usually happens is that there is a $20 application fee per show. Sometimes it can be higher than this, like maybe even up to $30 or $40 per application. And then if the judges decide that you don't get into the show, they keep your application fee. Then if you're accepted, you have to pay for the shipping of your artwork all over the country, wherever it is that you got accepted to. You have to hope that they can sell the work. If they can't, you have to pay for the shipping to return to you. And then in all of this process, you have to hope that your artwork does not get damaged. Now, if it sells, this can be a really good thing. Although the one downside is typically you will be paying around a 50% commission to any of these shows or galleries. But that's okay, because if you've elevated the price of your work to, let's say, $5,000 for a 30 by 40 inch painting, and you only get $2,500 out of it in the end, you're still making a pretty good amount of money. But you've got to consider shipping that painting all over the place to try to get it to sell, because it's probably not going to sell in its first show. You might be shipping it to 3, 4, 5, 10 shows. How much is that going to cost you? And then how long are you going to have to wait to be able to try to get your money? Because here's the other factor. When you apply to these shows, let's say you've paid $20 to apply with 2 pieces, and then for an extra $5 or $10, they allow you to apply with a couple more. So then 2 of the pieces get accepted, but the show isn't until 6 months away. So you want to do this show because you need the line on your CV. But in the meantime of that 6 months, you might have been able to sell that artwork either at an art fair or on your website, albeit for less money, but it would have been guaranteed money, whereas you're waiting for this show that you got accepted in. And like I said, you need on your CV so you could get into the even better shows. So you're waiting, you send it off, and then it doesn't sell, you get it back, you get the line on your CV, which is okay, but you're going to need a lot of these lines on your CV. So then what you do is you create a body of work, and then at the same time you apply to like dozens, 30, 40 shows, and you're sending them out all over the place to try to get sales and pad your CV. And then maybe at some point, one of these group shows will decide that they want to represent you if your work sells well in the show. And this would be the icing on the cake. And this is how you start to get into the galleries and start to make a name for yourself so that wealthy art buyers will want to purchase your work. And this way you'll be getting yourself in front of them. But it's a lot of work to do this. And so videos on YouTube, they make it sound like it's so easy to just like build a website. Another one that I watched suggested that all you have to do is get yourself interacting and socializing with some of the artists who are selling work for high dollar. And that's not going to work because you can socialize all you want. You can tag galleries that you want to get into on social media, and they might comment back on your work, and you might feel elevated because of it, like psychologically. But realistically, that's not going to get your work in front of those high-end buyers. The only thing that's going to be getting your work in front of them is getting past the gatekeepers and getting into the high-end galleries where the high-end buyers go to purchase work. And yeah, and like I laid out in this video, it's just not that easy. So what's the better way? In my opinion, it's to take your work out of the hands of all of the gatekeepers and sell it yourself. And of course, sell it for less money, because if you are not charging $5,000 and $10,000 prices, let's say you're selling a 16 by 20 painting for $500 rather than $2,000. If you sell it for a more reasonable price, then you're opening up a huge amount of people as your potential target market that you can access in person. This means that you don't have to live in New York City or LA to be able to get buyers. You can employ this strategy of selling your work yourself at in-person events in any place in the world, in any city around the country. There are art fairs all over, and you can earn a lot of money in one weekend doing art fairs. And just because you'll be selling your work for affordable prices does not mean that you won't be making really good money. I regularly make anywhere from $8,000 to $10,000 of sales in one weekend at art fairs, and I sell my work for extremely affordable prices. Typically, my prices are some of the very lowest at the art fairs. You don't have to sell your work as low as I do. I do this because I want kids to be able to afford my work, and I personally love it when a kid comes into my booth and their parent gives them $20 and they can buy one of my art prints, and it's the first artwork that they're ever going to purchase in their whole life. You know, it's their first piece. They love it and they get so happy and they're just giddy, and this lifts me up. It makes me feel so happy and fulfilled. So because of this, I like to have my work at super, super affordable prices. But you don't have to do that. You can sell more expensive work at art fairs as well. Now, you're probably not going to be selling $10,000 and $20,000 paintings at art fairs, but I have seen artists sell $5,000 paintings at art fairs that are very large, like 60 by 80, like huge wall-sized pieces. So you can sell pieces in person at these types of events for more money. You just have to try to figure out who your market is and then match what you're making to your target audience. And if you'd like more information about doing art fairs, I've made an entire course. It's absolutely free. You can watch it here on YouTube. All right, well, I hope this video helps. If you have any thoughts about wealthy art buyers, if you either agree or disagree with me, definitely post them in the comments. See you next time.